What's up guys, Carmine here, back again, once again, for another House of the Dragon review, this time for Season 2, Episode 3, and I've gotta say, not as strong as last week's episode, but good enough to lead us into the next one, which, from the preview, will be our dragon fight episode. You know the one, where they constantly show off Vhagar and Aemon in battle, it's all in the trailers. But this episode was one of the episodes of all time. It wasn't bad, I did like it, it was just a hard act to follow from last week's, but just like with Game of Thrones in its earlier seasons, the purpose of the first 3 episodes is to set up the conflict between factions and characters, and it did its job. Though the main point of conversation in the fandom right now has to be the ending with Rhaenyra, and we'll get to that, but honestly, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say this, thank you to the person in the writer's room who convinced the showrunner not to end the episode on another sex scene between Alicent and Criston Cole. Look, I just can't anymore with this guy, okay? Thank you to that guy. Seriously, you are the unsung hero of this episode. And before we get into it, I just want to remind you guys, considering I still get these comments from time to time, of people not receiving notifications whenever I upload a video. The best way to counteract this is to interact with the video by giving it a like and a comment. It tells the YouTube algorithm gods that you enjoy the creator you're watching and you want to be notified whenever they upload. Or consider following us on social media. Links are in the description below, or just look up Red Team Review. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Grindr, all the usual places. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. So this episode opened up quite strong. We got our first look as to how bloody this conflict will be, and it really delivered. We haven't seen such gore on the field like this since the Battle of Bastards, where piles of bodies were mounting up. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of big battle sequences, but in moments like this, where we get the immediate aftermath of some dumb kid's bad move, it was very well done. Reminds me of that one scene from Season 1 of Thrones where Tyrion is about to go into battle and then hits his head on the axe and misses the entire fight. It was a good way to save money on all those extras and horses charging in, and it also drove the point home that this will be very devastating. In the next scene, we get the usual Rhaenys cautioning Rhaenyra in the aftermath of last week's episode, and I gotta say, Rhaenyra this time around was a little frustrating, and that isn't a mark against the episode itself. On some level, you're supposed to be annoyed with the character's decisions, but it feels as though the showrunner Ryan Condal is bending over backwards a little too much in trying to make her the good guy in this by showing her as someone who is cautious about unleashing the bloodshed we saw in the first scene. I get that, but after a while, it does become ridiculous when she has to do the Daemon cloak maneuver to really make sure there's no way back from this. Once again, we'll talk about that scene in a bit. Criston Cole, on the other hand, when he's not busy being hated by everyone, is actually a competent commander. His plan during the Small Council was pretty solid, and real quick, I gotta say, all the Small Council scenes have been very good so far. Even if the episode itself was alright, the one thing that remains consistent, even with the worst episodes of the entire franchise, is that the Small Council moments have always been super good. But Cole actually had some good scenes this time around. Him at the gates with Alicent, and then again in the field when Baela chases him down. Speaking of which, Baela also had her time to shine. She didn't do much last season, but this time they're making up for that. It's also a damn shame that Baela has never really had any scenes with her grandmother Rhaenys, even though that was a deleted scene from last season. However, it doesn't count, considering most people don't even know about it. If you want to check out that scene, I'll leave a link in the description below. It was a good one that they should have left in. Daemon, on the other hand, went all Dark Souls on us by storming Harrenhal, and I love how it was a simple affair. They don't put up a fight, just tell him to sit down and have some dinner. And honestly, outside our main cast, this was a fun discussion between him and Simon Strong, and I love how the writers here show us that these characters aren't stupid. Simon knows that Larys is a terrible person, and even cites how that fire was quite impossible to begin with. He even goes into the Bracken-Blackwood feud with Daemon, asking why. The whole scene felt kind of meta. It's quite clear that the writers have delved into the community and know a thing or two, but Daemon in Harrenhal, yeah, it looks like this is what he'll be for the remainder of the season, and it turns out he'll be having some gnarly visions from the new character, Alice Rivers. Head writer Sarah Hess has already told us that Alice won't be a Melisandre clone, but that we should expect some spooky stuff going down, all from her to mess with Daemon's head. I kinda like the sound of that, though, and I do wonder if we're going to get Daemon doing a complete 180 with him in these visions, which will cause him to be less of a terrible person, but that might be wishful thinking. We'll have to see. And now let's get to the real controversy of the episode, Rhaenyra doing the Daemon maneuver of wearing some type of cloak to do a secret meeting with Alicent. This is new, this is original, and I'm gonna keep saying this till you're sick of it. Both of these characters, in the books at least, barely do anything in the opening stages of the conflict. They aren't on the front lines, so they get glossed over in these moments. The showrunners want to keep the actresses on the payroll, and they're the main characters, so expect more original non-book scenes from these two. That being said, I'm kind of on the fence, but I'm leaning more towards not liking it because it was silly, let's be honest. But I do want to present both sides fairly because there is a lot to unpack here. On one hand, I get what Condal is trying to do by making this extra tragic in a sense that they both realized the mistake, but there's nothing to do about it now. Too little, too late. A counter to that is just how insane that every single story beat in the show is just characters making mistakes. Aemon killing Luke? Whoops. Daemon's assassins killing the kid? Whoops. It's just, the character themselves, even last episode, claimed that what they did was a mistake, and after a while it becomes ridiculous, that everything that anybody does is just, whoopsie daisy. Yeah, I've also seen people who didn't like this scene say how Rhaenyra going to Alicent makes no sense, considering Alicent has no real power to do anything, which is true, but remember, Rhaenyra doesn't know that. The last time Rhaenyra saw Alicent was last season in episode 8, where both Alicent and Otto were clearly in charge, despite Viserys still being king. Rhaenyra believes that they have some modicum of power in the Red Keep, and she's unaware that Aegon is doing his own thing. Overall, the episode was what it was, a setup episode for the rest of the season, and it did what it needed to do. As it stands, it's currently the weakest one, but I don't think it was that bad at all. At the end of the day, it did its job of entertaining us, and to be fair, not all of them can be winners, and that's okay. If I had to say who had the MVP award of the episode, that's a tough one. Baela had some nice moments, sure, as did Daemon and a few other people, but nobody really stood out for me to really give this to anyone. If I really had to pick, though, it'd probably be the man in charge of Criston Cole's haircut. Clearly, he hates him as much as we do. Real quick, I wanted to address a few points I saw in the replies to my episode 4 preview. Lady Seastar brings up Mysaria and if she'll be a version of Nettles. For those of you who don't know, Nettles is a dragon seed who, in the books, claimed a dragon. As to what Lady Seastar is saying, I don't think Mysaria will claim any dragon. Like I said before in my last video, and I'll say it here again, they had no idea what they were doing with Mysaria, and I think they're finally figuring out what to do this season, and it's not Dragonseed. Last time, Mysaria was just someone who knew a guy who knew a guy. This time, she has actual contacts that can get stuff done, I guess. I don't think you can compare her to Varys and Littlefinger just yet, considering her reach only extends as far as King's Landing, but we'll see. And I also wanted to highlight this thread here by Necrawl, who thought that Rhaenyra and her scene with Alicent in this episode is when the show finally jumped the shark, while the person replying to them feels as though Season 1 had a lot of those silly moments that was just as bad as this one, and I'm inclined to agree with that. On the podcast, we realized how crazy it was that Season 1 had a lot of moments in extremes. What was good was really good, and what was bad was really bad. The Rhaenyra wedding with Cole beating the hell out of that guy was really bad, but then you had Viserys walking in the throne room that episode. That was a really great moment. I feel like this is the scene that's going to be one of those from Season 1. And from the looks of it, the fandom will be very conflicted on this, because, yeah, I've seen your comments, and you guys are saying it was good, and some are you saying it was really bad. I noticed no one is in between like I am, so we'll just have to see. But guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave your thoughts down below and let me know what you thought of the episode. And of course, be sure to interact with the video by liking or commenting to let the YouTube algorithm gods know you want to see my videos in your notification feed, or just follow us on Twitter or Facebook. All links in the description below. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.